This video will explain Chapter 1 from the book called English Literature, written by Martin Stephen. Chapter 1 is called Study and Examination Techniques in English Literature. As you already know, you will be asked to write down your opinion about the text you have been reading. This opinion will have to adopt the form of an essay. Stephen begins chapter 1 with this introduction. He explains that as far as literature is concerned, the major method by which students are examined is the essay. Grasping the basic principles and conventions that govern almost all essay writing is essential. So the objective of this first chapter of the book is to give tips, to offer advice to students who are preparing written assignments. Stephen begins by posing this question: what is the examiner looking for? He makes a difference between reading for pleasure and reading for an examination. He explains that when you read for pleasure, you can think what you like about the book, and will probably first of all decide whether or not you enjoy it. In our case, hopefully we will be able to enjoy what we read, but the main purpose is to be examined. So our situation falls in, let's say, this category: reading for an examination. When you read for an examination, the examiner wants to know if you have understood what you have read. When you read a book that you will be examined on, you are reading it to judge or find out what the author wanted to say or achieve in that book. In a literary essay, you have to be able to justify or prove everything you think by reference to the text. This last idea is really crucial. We always need to support, justify, prove whatever opinion we may have by referring to the text. We can do this by using quotations or by referring directly to an event or a character in the text. Incidentally, I want to add that the type of writing we are now working with can be labeled or called literary essay because it is an essay based on a literary text. In the next section, Stephen offers a list of tips that we need to take into account when we write. These are called points of style. They are the following: simplicity, clarity, and economy are the most valuable stylistic features in any literary essay. Next one, never patronize or condescend the reader. Next one, never say how difficult a question is or that you cannot make up your mind on it. Never ask questions in an essay. Never use incomprehensible language. Never use a word unless you are absolutely sure of what it means. Do not be repetitive. And finally, using a flowery or ornate style is a mistake. See the following example. This is a passage written by a student. This question is one of the most difficult of all to answer, and I propose to look at both sides of the case before proceeding to my conclusion. What are we to think of this issue? The multi-layered phenomenon of a great tragedy, with its eponymous hero and final catharsis, presents such a magnitude of experience that only excessive insight can provoke a final and complete understanding. So this is what Stephen means by flowery language, ornate language. The language may be flowery, ornate, complex even, but this passage actually doesn't say anything. This is the kind of language we need to avoid using. The next section in the chapter is called Answering the Question, and Stephen explains that the single most common cause of failure to write an effective answer is failure to answer the question. I'm going to stop here. What does he mean by answering the question? In general, this type of assignment begins with a question chosen by the examiner, the tutor, and the student must give his or her opinion upon this question. That's why Stephen speaks of answering a question. Let's continue. So, the failure usually takes two forms. The failure to answer the question usually takes two forms. The first is where students write an answer to the question they want to be asked, instead of writing an answer to the question they have been asked. If this happens to you, what you will receive in the feedback is the comment off topic or off subject. This means that we have to answer what we are asked to answer, not whatever we feel like answering. The second problem or second cause of failure is where students give a plot summary instead of answering the specific question as set. Now, writing about the plot will get you nowhere. It is what you make of the plot that matters, not your knowledge of it. I mean, we take it for granted. We assume that you know what the story is about. So the question will never be about the plot. The piece of advice here is then, do not include a long account of the plot. Your essay should contain quotations from the text and references to incidents in it, but only as backup or evidence for a point you are making. Now, this is important. Ask yourself at all times if what you are writing down is wholly and totally relevant to the question you have been set. The examiner, in this case, I am the examiner, the tutor, wants to see that you can choose the few relevant facts from a mass of information and then apply them to a specific area of the text and its content. What do we mean by this? The text might be very long if we are talking about a whole play or a very, very long poem. So we need to choose relevant information out of the text, only relevant information. Merely providing relevant information is not enough either. You have to show the examiner why it is relevant. So as you can see, we are now entering the issue of how to use quotations. We will continue with this in the second part of the video.